Oscar runs experiment to try to uncover pace deficit. The FIA is in trouble as Williams and other teams send warnings, and more cost cap drama for Aston Martin. The Formula One world is buzzing with drama, and at the center of it all is Oscar Piastri, facing the biggest challenge of his young career. What started as a promising championship battle between McLaren teammates has turned into a storm of conspiracy theories, fan outrage, and serious questions about what's really happening behind the scenes. Just 1 point now separates Piastri from his teammate Lando Norris in the championship standings, but that tiny margin tells a massive story. After losing the lead to Norris following the Mexico City Grand Prix, Piastri finds himself in unfamiliar territory, struggling with pace issues that have left fans and experts scratching their heads. The conspiracy theories started swirling after Austin, but they reached fever pitch in Mexico. Social media exploded with accusations that McLaren was deliberately sabotaging Piastri's car to favor the British driver. The theories became so intense that Norris was actually booed on the podium after his dominant Mexico victory. Think about that for a moment. A driver getting booed for winning because fans believe his own team is cheating for him. But here's where things get really interesting. Instead of pointing fingers or crying foul, Piastri is taking a completely different approach. He's calling for a thorough analysis of what's been going wrong, particularly focusing on the driving style changes he's had to make in recent races. The Australian driver admits he's been forced to drive in a way that doesn't feel natural to him. For 19 races this season, one approach worked perfectly. Then suddenly, in Austin and Mexico, everything changed. The hot conditions and sliding cars demanded a completely different technique, and Piastri has been struggling to adapt. In Mexico, starting 8th and losing 3 positions on the opening lap, Piastri spent most of the race stuck in dirty air behind slower cars. He finished 5th, but a staggering 40 seconds behind his victorious teammate. That's not just a bad day at the office. That's a complete performance collapse that demands serious investigation. What makes this situation even more compelling is Piastri's mature response to the crisis. Rather than buying into the conspiracy theories or making excuses, he's focused on the technical aspects of his struggles. He acknowledges that McLaren tried various setup changes during the Mexico weekend, but being stuck in traffic made it impossible to properly evaluate whether these modifications actually helped. The 24-year-old driver describes his recent performances as requiring experimentation with techniques that feel completely unnatural to him. It's like asking a pianist to suddenly play guitar. The basic skills are there, but the muscle memory and instincts are all wrong. This kind of fundamental driving style adjustment is incredibly difficult for any driver, especially mid-season when every point matters. What's particularly fascinating is how this challenge reveals the razor-thin margins in modern Formula One. We're talking about a sport where thousandths of a second can determine success or failure. When conditions change and require different techniques, even the most talented drivers can suddenly find themselves struggling to extract maximum performance from their cars. The timing couldn't be worse for Piastri. With just 4 races remaining and 116 points still up for grabs, every weekend is crucial. Brazil and Qatar both feature sprint races, adding extra opportunities for points, but also more chances for things to go wrong. The pressure is immense, and the margin for error has essentially disappeared. McLaren's position in all this is equally intriguing. Having already secured the Constructors' Championship, they've declared a clean slate between their drivers. No team orders, no favoritism, just pure racing between 2 incredibly talented young drivers. It's a high-risk strategy that could backfire spectacularly if the teammates take each other out, potentially opening the door for Max Verstappen to capitalize. The broader implications of this situation extend far beyond just one driver's struggles. We're witnessing how modern Formula One cars respond to different conditions and driving styles. The fact that Piastri dominated for most of the season using one technique, then suddenly needed to completely change his approach, highlights how sensitive these machines are to setup and driving style variations. This also demonstrates the incredible mental strength required at the highest level of motorsport. Imagine being at the top of your game for months, then suddenly having everything you know about driving feel wrong. Lesser drivers might crumble under that pressure, but Piastri is channeling his frustration into analytical determination. Looking ahead to the final 4 races, Piastri's approach might actually give him an advantage by focusing on understanding and Solving his technical issues rather than getting caught up in conspiracy theories, he's positioning himself to potentially come back stronger. If the data analysis reveals what's been going wrong, and if he can successfully adapt his driving style, there's no reason he can't reclaim the championship lead. The fan theories about deliberate sabotage, while dramatic, miss the real story here. This is about the incredible complexity of modern racing and how small changes can have massive impacts on performance. It's about a young driver facing adversity with maturity and determination rather than making excuses. As we head into the championship's final stretch, one thing is certain. This battle between Piastri and Norris will be decided by pure pace and racecraft, not conspiracy theories. And with Piastri's analytical approach to solving his recent struggles, this championship fight is far from over. What happens when a single racing incident creates a domino effect that destroys an entire weekend? The Mexican Grand Prix just gave us the perfect example, and the story behind Carlos Sainz's double penalty is absolutely wild. Picture this. You're Carlos Sainz, finally hitting your stride at Williams after a rocky start to your career with the team. You've just scored your first podium in Azerbaijan, followed it up with another podium finish in the US sprint race, and you're feeling confident heading into Mexico City. Then, in the space of just one corner, everything falls apart. But here's where this story gets fascinating. What initially looked like a driver making costly mistakes in the pit lane turned out to be something completely different. The real culprit wasn't human error at all. Let me take you back to lap 1 of the Mexican Grand Prix. Turn 1 is always chaos in Mexico City, and this time was no exception. Sainz found himself in a typical first corner melee, 3-4 cars running side by side through the opening sequence. It's the kind of situation every Formula One driver knows by heart, where split-second decisions can make or break your entire race. In this particular incident, Sainz made contact with Racing Bull's driver Liam Lawson. At first glance, it seemed like just another racing incident, the kind of thing that happens when 20 of the world's best drivers are fighting for position at 200 miles per hour. But the consequences of this seemingly minor collision would haunt Sainz for the entire race. Here's what most viewers didn't realize as they watched the race unfold. When Sainz hit Lawson, the impact caused significant damage to his Williams. Not just bodywork damage that you can see from the television cameras, but critical technical damage that would compromise his entire weekend. The collision damaged Sainz's wheel rim, which in turn affected multiple systems on his car. His first set of tires was compromised, but more importantly, the impact damaged his rim sensors and speed sensors. These might sound like minor components, but in modern Formula One, they're absolutely crucial for one specific reason: the pit speed limiter. Every Formula One car is equipped with a system that automatically limits the car's speed in the pit lane to exactly 80 kilometers per hour. This isn't optional equipment. It's a critical safety system designed to protect the hundreds of mechanics, camera operators, and officials working in the pit lane during a race. When this system fails, drivers are forced to manually control their speed, which is incredibly difficult to judge precisely while racing. This is exactly what happened to Sainz. After his collision with Lawson, his speed limiting system was completely compromised. He had no way of knowing this immediately, of course. The first indication came during his first pit stop on lap 18. As Sainz entered the pit lane for his first stop, he relied on his speed limiter, as every driver does. But unknown to him, the system wasn't working properly. He exceeded the 80 km/h limit by just 0.2 of a kilometer per hour. That tiny margin, barely perceptible to human senses, resulted in a 5-second time penalty. At this point, Williams realized they had a serious problem. The team quickly identified that Sainz's speed limiting system was malfunctioning due to the earlier collision damage. They made a crucial decision: instruct Sainz to avoid using the pit limiter entirely during his second stop, and instead manually control his speed. But here's where the situation became truly challenging. Manually judging pit lane speed while racing is extraordinarily difficult. Drivers are used to relying on their speed limiters, and asking them to suddenly switch to manual control mid-race is like asking a pilot to land a plane without instruments. During his second pit stop on lap 46, disaster struck again. Despite Williams' instructions and Sainz's best efforts to manually control his speed, he exceeded the limit while accelerating at the pit lane exit. This time, the margin was much larger, 9.8 km/h over the limit. The penalty was severe: a drive-through penalty that essentially ended his chances of scoring points. The frustration in Sainz's voice after the race was palpable. He explained how the contact at the start had compromised everything about his car: his strategy, his tires, his speed sensors, and his pit limiter. Despite all these issues, he emphasized that the car still had genuine pace. Even with a compromised setup, damaged components, and penalty-affected strategy, Williams was competitive. From Liam Lawson's perspective, the incident looked completely different. He described having an excellent start and finding space on the outside of Turn 1. From his viewpoint, Sainz decided to cut the chicane without proper awareness of cars around him, resulting in contact that severely damaged Lawson's Racing Bull's car. Lawson's frustration was equally understandable. The collision destroyed the side of his car's floor, broke his front wing, and left him running 3 seconds per lap slower than his normal pace. His race was effectively over before it had barely begun. The incident highlights something fascinating about modern Formula One. What appears to be driver error often has complex technical explanations. Sainz's double penalty wasn't the result of poor driving or lack of concentration. It was the direct consequence of sensor damage from a first-lap racing incident. This situation also demonstrates the incredible precision required in Formula One. A speed difference of just 0.2 of a kilometer per hour, virtually imperceptible to human judgment, results in a 5-second penalty. When systems designed to ensure this precision fail, drivers are left in an almost impossible situation. For Williams, this weekend represented both promise and frustration. Sainz's recent form surge has been one of the positive stories of the season. His podium finishes and consistent qualifying performances have shown that Williams is genuinely competitive again. But mechanical failures and racing incidents can instantly transform a point-scoring opportunity into a weekend to forget. The Mexican Grand Prix incident serves as a perfect reminder that Formula One remains unpredictable despite all its technological sophistication. A single moment of contact in Turn 1 created a cascade of problems that affected pit stops, penalties, and ultimately forced a retirement when Sainz spun and hit the wall with just 3 laps remaining. Sometimes in racing, everything that can go wrong does go wrong. And the Mexican Grand Prix was exactly that kind of weekend for Carlos Sainz and Williams. Picture this. You've just delivered the performance of your life, dominated a Formula One race from start to finish, and instead of cheers, you're met with a chorus of boos. That's exactly what happened to Lando Norris at the Mexican Grand Prix. But here's the shocking part. The hostility didn't just happen after his victory. New revelations show the booing started much earlier than anyone realized. What we're about to uncover goes way deeper than just post-race disappointment from Mexican fans. This is a story about perception, championship politics, and how a driver's brilliant season might be getting overshadowed by controversy he never asked for. Let me set the scene for you. The Mexican Grand Prix at the Autodromo Hermanos Rodriguez is one of Formula One's most electric atmospheres. The crowd is passionate, loud, and fiercely loyal to their favorites. When Lando Norris crossed the finish line last Sunday, securing his 6th victory of the season and reclaiming the championship lead, you'd expect celebration. Instead, he faced a wall of hostility that left even seasoned commentators scratching their heads. But here's where it gets really interesting. Sky Sports commentator David Croft dropped a bombshell revelation that changes everything we thought we knew about this incident. While filming pre-race coverage in the stadium section during the driver's parade, Croft witnessed something that nobody had reported until now. Norris was already being booed before the race even started. Think about that for a moment. This wasn't just disappointed fans venting after their preferred driver lost. This was premeditated hostility toward a driver who hadn't even competed yet. Croft described how the crowd erupted with cheers for Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc, but when Norris appeared, the boos began immediately. The timing of this revelation is crucial because it completely changes the narrative. Initially, many assumed the Mexican crowd was simply disappointed that their beloved Sergio Perez had struggled this season. Or perhaps they were upset about Norris beating their other favorites. But booing someone before they've even raced suggests something much deeper is going on. Former Formula One driver Karun Chandhok, who was co-commentating with Croft, admitted he was completely baffled by the crowd's reaction. He couldn't identify any specific incident or rivalry between Norris and Mexican drivers that would justify such treatment. Even more telling, Chandhok expressed genuine disgust at the behavior, comparing it to similar incidents where Max Verstappen faced hostile crowds in previous seasons. So, what's really driving this hostility toward Norris? The answer might lie in the perception of fairness and team politics within McLaren. A local Mexican reporter confronted Norris directly about this during the post-race press conference, suggesting that fans believe he's being given the championship following McLaren's controversial team orders at the Italian Grand Prix earlier this season. This accusation cuts to the heart of modern Formula One's biggest debates. At Monza, McLaren made the strategic decision to have Oscar Piastri, who was leading, allow Norris to overtake him for the victory. The team justified this as correcting a pit stop strategy error that had put Piastri ahead unfairly. But to casual observers, it looked like blatant favoritism toward their championship-contending driver. Norris handled the press conference confrontation with remarkable composure and humor. His response was both diplomatic and defiant, acknowledging that fans have the right to their opinions while defending the fairness of McLaren's decisions. He pointed to the previous year's Hungarian Grand Prix, where he had to let Piastri through to win a race that Piastri deserved, as evidence that the team doesn't play favorites. What's fascinating about Norris's reaction to the booing is how genuinely amused he seems by it all. In multiple interviews, he mentioned that he can't stop laughing when crowds boo him. This isn't the response of someone trying to put on a brave face. This appears to be genuine entertainment at the absurdity of the situation. This psychological response actually reveals something important about Norris's championship mentality. Rather than letting hostile crowds get under his skin, he's found a way to turn negative energy into motivation. He mentioned that the booing makes races more entertaining for him, which suggests a level of mental toughness that championship contenders need. The broader implications of this story extend far beyond one weekend in Mexico. With just 4 races remaining in the season, Norris holds a razor-thin 1-point lead over teammate Piastri in the championship standings. Max Verstappen, the 4-time defending champion, sits 36 points back but can never be counted out. The pressure on Norris is immense. This is his first realistic shot at a world championship, and every decision McLaren makes will be scrutinized through the lens of championship politics. The Mexican crowd's reaction suggests that perception of fairness could become a significant factor in how his potential championship victory is received by the broader Formula One community. What makes this situation even more complex is the evolution of modern Formula One fandom. Social media has amplified every controversy, and casual fans often lack the context to understand complex strategic decisions. The narrative that Norris is being gifted victories might persist regardless of the actual facts, potentially tainting what should be celebrated as an outstanding individual season. Looking at Norris's performance objectively, his 6th victory of the season represents a remarkable turnaround. His first win since Hungary in August reignited his championship hopes at the perfect moment. The 30-second margin of victory in Mexico wasn't lucky. It was dominant, driving from a competitor hitting his peak at exactly the right time. The real tragedy in this booing incident isn't the hurt feelings or momentary embarrassment. It's that exceptional sporting achievement is being overshadowed by manufactured controversy and misunderstood team dynamics. Norris has delivered some of the most spectacular drives of the modern era this season, yet portions of the fan base seem more interested in conspiracy theories than celebrating genuine racing excellence. As we head into the final stretch of this championship battle, one thing is certain: Lando Norris has shown he can handle pressure from every direction. Whether that pressure comes from championship rivals on track or hostile crowds in the stands, he's found a way to thrive under adversity. That mental strength might just be the difference maker in what promises to be an unforgettable championship finale. The championship fight that nobody saw coming is happening right before our eyes, and Max Verstappen just dropped some brutally honest words that might change everything we thought we knew about this title race. What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the channel, where we break down the biggest stories from the world of Formula One. If you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button, because we're diving deep into the most dramatic championship battle in years. And trust me, you don't want to miss what happens next. So here's what just went down in Mexico City that has the entire Formula One world talking. Max Verstappen, the 3-time world champion who many thought was cruising toward another title just months ago, is now staring down a 36-point deficit with only 4 races left on the calendar. But here's the kicker. His reaction to this mounting pressure is absolutely not what you'd expect from someone in his position. Let me paint you the picture of just how wild this championship swing has been. Remember back at the Dutch Grand Prix when Verstappen looked untouchable? Well, since then, he's clawed back 68 points toward the championship lead. 68 points! That's the equivalent of nearly 3 full race wins worth of points gained on his rivals. Yet after finishing third in Mexico City, Verstappen's immediate response wasn't celebration or optimism. It was a cold, calculated assessment that should have McLaren fans seriously worried. Here's what he said that caught everyone off guard. Everything needs to go perfect to win, and this weekend didn't go perfect. So that's your answer. Now, on the surface, that might sound like someone giving up, but dig deeper and you'll realize this is classic Verstappen psychology at work. He's not panicking. He's not making desperate promises. He's setting expectations while simultaneously putting pressure on his competitors. But wait, it gets even more interesting. The championship standings have completely flipped in the most unexpected way. Lando Norris, who dominated in Mexico City, has now overtaken his own teammate Oscar Piastri for the championship lead. Think about that for a second. We've gone from a Red Bull runaway to a McLaren internal battle with Verstappen lurking just 36 points behind. The Australian sits just 1 point behind Norris now, creating this incredible three-way fight that nobody predicted at the start of the season. Now here's where the math gets absolutely fascinating, and why Verstappen's calm demeanor might be more strategic than desperate. To win his 4th consecutive championship, he needs to outscore both McLaren drivers by an average of 9 points per race for the remaining 4 rounds. Sounds impossible? Here's why it might not be. First, there are 2 sprint weekends coming up, which means more opportunities for points and more chances for things to go wrong for his rivals. Sprint races are notorious for chaos, safety cars, and unexpected results. One DNF for either McLaren driver during a sprint weekend could completely change the trajectory of this championship fight. Second, and this is crucial, the tiebreaker rules heavily favor whoever has more race wins if drivers finish level on points. Currently, Piastri leads with 7 victories, Norris has 6, and Verstappen sits at 5. But here's what's scary for McLaren. Verstappen has been the most consistent winner throughout his career when the pressure is on. If he can win even 2 of the remaining races while the McLaren drivers split victories between themselves, those tiebreaker rules suddenly become very relevant. But here's what really stood out from Verstappen's post-race comments, and why I think there's more going on here than meets the eye. He specifically called out Red Bull's performance issues, saying they're not quick in every scenario, and that they need to understand it better. This isn't the talk of a defeated driver. This is someone who's identified the problem and is demanding solutions. Remember, this is the same Max Verstappen who thrives under pressure. The same driver who won his first championship in the most controversial circumstances possible and then followed it up with 2 dominant seasons. The same competitor who has never backed down from a fight, no matter how steep the odds. His measured response tells me he sees something in the data that gives him confidence, even if the points gap looks daunting. The really intriguing part is how this 3-way battle creates psychological pressure that didn't exist when it was just Verstappen versus one challenger. Norris and Piastri are teammates, but they're also competitors. Every point one gains over the other is a point that could decide their individual championship hopes. That internal pressure could create opportunities for mistakes that Verstappen is perfectly positioned to capitalize on. Looking at the remaining tracks, we have circuits where Red Bull has historically performed well, and more importantly, tracks where McLaren's recent dominance isn't guaranteed. Weather, strategy calls, mechanical reliability, any of these factors could swing multiple races in ways that completely reshape this championship fight. What makes Verstappen's position even more dangerous is that he's got nothing to lose now. The pressure is entirely on McLaren to manage a 1-2 finish in the standings while dealing with the reality that their drivers are now competing against each other as much as they are against Red Bull. Meanwhile, Verstappen can drive with the freedom that comes from being the hunter rather than the hunted. So while 36 points might look like an insurmountable gap with 4 races to go, remember that we've just witnessed one of the most dramatic championship swings in Formula One history. If Verstappen can gain 68 points in half a season, what's stopping him from finding 36 more in 4 races? This championship fight is far from over, and Max Verstappen's calm confidence might just be the most dangerous thing about his current position. Picture this. You're running a Formula One team with a budget of $165 million, and you mess up because your accountant was in the hospital. Sounds like something out of a comedy movie, right? Well, that's exactly what happened to Aston Martin, and today we're diving deep into the latest Formula One cost cap drama that has the entire paddock talking. What if I told you that missing a single signature could potentially cost a team millions of dollars in competitive advantages? The world of Formula One financial regulations is more cutthroat than you might imagine, and Aston Martin just learned this lesson the hard way. Let me paint you the full picture of what actually went down. The FIA recently completed their annual financial audit for the 2024 season. And while most teams were sweating bullets waiting for results, rumors started circulating around the Mexico City Grand Prix paddock that someone had committed a major breach. The tension was palpable. Teams, drivers, and journalists were all speculating about which constructor might face severe penalties. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. When the FIA finally announced their findings, it wasn't the dramatic scandal everyone anticipated. Instead, they revealed that Aston Martin had committed what they called a very minor procedural breach. Not a financial overspend, not an attempt to gain competitive advantage, but a simple procedural error. Now, let's talk about why this matters so much. The cost cap system was introduced in 2021 to level the playing field in Formula One. Before this regulation existed, there was an astronomical difference between what the biggest spenders and smallest budgets could afford. Teams like Mercedes, Red Bull, and Ferrari were operating with virtually unlimited resources, while smaller constructors struggled to compete with scraps. The cap works by limiting each team to spending no more than $165 million per season on car development, operations, and personnel. This doesn't include driver salaries, marketing costs, or certain other expenses, but it covers the core elements that directly impact on-track performance. Here's what makes Aston Martin's situation particularly interesting and somewhat sympathetic. According to sources close to the matter, their breach occurred because an auditor's signature was missing from their financial submission. The reason? That auditor was hospitalized on the deadline day. Talk about unfortunate timing. The FIA recognized these exceptional and unpredictable circumstances and offered Aston Martin what's called an accepted breach agreement. This essentially means they acknowledged the mistake, agreed to resolve it cooperatively, and face no financial penalties. The governing body was satisfied that Aston Martin acted in good faith throughout the entire process and didn't attempt to gain any unfair advantage. This stands in stark contrast to what happened with Red Bull Racing back in 2021. That situation involved an actual overspend, meaning they exceeded the financial limit itself, not just a paperwork error. Red Bull's breach resulted in a $7 million fine and a 10% reduction in their wind tunnel and computational fluid dynamics time. Those penalties had real competitive consequences that affected their development capabilities. Jonathan Wheatley, who was Red Bull's sporting director during their 2021 breach and is now leading Sauber, provided valuable insight into how these situations develop. Speaking at the Mexico City Grand Prix, he emphasized that nobody commits these breaches intentionally. Teams are constantly walking a tightrope, trying to spend every possible dollar right up to the limit to maximize their competitive potential. Think about it from a team's perspective. You're in a sport where milliseconds determine victory or defeat. Every component, every upgrade, every aerodynamic tweak could be the difference between winning and losing. The natural instinct is to push boundaries and spend as much as legally possible. Sometimes, unexpected costs arise late in the season that can throw off carefully planned budgets. The delay in announcing the audit results had everyone on edge. Teams knew something was brewing when the FIA took longer than usual to publish their findings. This created a pressure cooker atmosphere where speculation ran wild about which constructor might be in trouble and how severe the consequences would be. What's fascinating about this entire episode is how it highlights the delicate balance teams must maintain. They're simultaneously trying to be maximally competitive while navigating complex financial regulations that require meticulous attention to detail. One missing signature, one miscalculated expense, one unexpected cost can potentially derail an entire season's worth of work. The cost cap has fundamentally changed Formula One's landscape. We're seeing closer competition between teams that previously couldn't match the spending power of the sport's giants. Smaller constructors now have a genuine opportunity to compete for podiums and victories, while the traditional powerhouses must operate more efficiently than ever before. Looking ahead, this incident serves as a reminder that compliance isn't just about the big-picture financial numbers. It's also about getting every procedural detail exactly right. Teams now understand that having backup plans for critical deadlines and ensuring multiple people can handle essential submissions isn't just good practice. It's absolutely crucial for avoiding potentially devastating penalties. The Aston Martin situation ultimately demonstrates both the strictness and fairness of the current system. While the FIA takes these regulations seriously enough to investigate and announce even minor procedural breaches, they're also reasonable enough to recognize genuine, exceptional circumstances and respond proportionately. This balanced approach helps maintain the integrity of the cost cap while ensuring that human errors or unforeseeable situations don't result in disproportionate punishments.